Hey there, and welcome to Rift of Nations Session 8 breakdown. I'm going to start off with this whole thing just like episode 7. I'm going to break down what I thought was going to happen, and then I'll end with what actually did happen and a bunch of DM perspective of this story of what's going on. It's a lot of stuff out there that I've seen. You can see the actual story from the player's perspective, from the audience's perspective. I'm telling you from the DM perspective. I've never seen it done like this before. Let me know. Comment if you like this type of stuff. So here we go. What I thought was going to happen as the players, again, watch all the links to all these videos will be in the description, this whole series. So episode 7 is down below. But where session 7 left off was they're approaching the city that's getting attacked by all sorts of Lycans. You got badger Lycans, mole Lycans, bat and crow, eagle Lycans, wolf, tiger, panther, all this type of stuff, right? Actually, not tiger. They wouldn't be here because that's... Anyway. So... lots of different Lycans are attacking the city, so I knew they were going to be entering into a mass combat, which I was going to run through a skill challenge system that I have set up. It's one of the many different mass combat ways that I run mass combat that I'm going to have in Alcander's Almanac. This was the first full iteration of all of those different rules that I've pulled together all in one, and I'm telling you, it was awesome. I love it, love it, love it. Still going to do some stuff. I'm going to start putting it out there. But anyway, that's Alcander's Almanac stuff that's going to be coming through on that. So I knew that the mass combat was going to happen. Didn't know how well it was going to go. I was prepared for however bad it went. I had an entire table of NPCs that could be casualties for however bad they did. And I had a single roll that the city was going to make at the end of it, which I guess I'm not going to get into in this video. I'm not going to get into my mass combat system. But basically, there was rounds, and they had round 1. They each made a check for something that they described they wanted to do with the situation, and they accumulated successes that added towards this modifier, towards this final roll of the entire mass combat. And the more successes they had, the more modifiers you add to that roll. So eventually that roll could become just an absolute success if they chose to stay and fight. Because at the end of every round, they could choose to retreat or continue on, right, and risk their lives, literally. Retreating would just be backing up into the city and seeing what happens, and then they would just be victims or survive, depending on how the roll went, and they would just wash their hands clean of it. But anyway, that's going to be a whole nother video that I eventually make about mass combat. So I knew that was coming, and then after that, they're going to be checking in with all their higher-ups, and seeing, checking in with the big boss man and the church, Commander Broadstone, which is second in command. And they're checking in with the church. I was interested to see how that whole thing went. And then I knew that I was going to have the patron of my warlock player a confrontation there. So I didn't know what the order was going to be, but I knew that was definitely a session's worth of stuff. So here's what happened. They roll up to the city that's being attacked by all these Lycans. And right before is when, this is very important, Darius, the warlock, turned his back on his patron. He took his tome, put it in the satchel of the mule, wasn't going to cast spells anymore. He literally wrote a note to his patron, put the letter in the book, says, "I'm done with magic. I can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. I'm not doing it." Right? Because of all the stuff that happened in session 7, which was a saber-tooth tiger cat fight that went real bad. He rolled real poorly on, and then there was this thief tried to steal some stuff from them. They ended up catching both of them. They ended up being completely fine in both of those situations, although they were close. Those 2 moments of failure shook Darius, and Darius was like, "I'm done with my whole patron thing. I'm done." And he turned his back on his warlock patron, which is where we're going to end this whole session. 8 was the cliffhanger left off on, because we left off on a cliffhanger. So he abandons his patron going into this fight, and I was like, wow, like I built this fight with partially in mind knowing I would have a nature caster that he could interact with some stuff on, which didn't even come into play, which is such a cool thing about this game of D&D. You never know what your player's going to do. So they come up to the city. Here's the map. Bam. Right? There's the map. They were approaching from here, and there we go. They're approaching from up here. There's a huge boulder that most of the Lycan forces were coming from here. They were trying to climb over the rock walls. They were trying to get into the city. You have ballista push around the tops here. You had ladders that could be dropped down to be able to get into the city, all that stuff, right? So, They had their skill challenge. They went through it, and they did very well. It was super tight down to the wire. One of the players got knocked unconscious. There was rolls. If you rolled bad enough, you got bit by one of the werewolves, and then you would have to make a save. That happened 3 times, but there was another way. If you rolled really high, I had a little token that I gave the player, and you could save someone from getting bit. So the people that rolled high were able to help the people that rolled low, and it balanced out. So there was enough people who saved and used those tokens to stop them from getting bitten and everything. They still took damage, and they still had a player that go unconscious. We had a death saving throw rolled, which then on the fly I came up with those tokens that prevented from bites you could spend to help her with the death saves. So that was an interesting little on the fly thing that felt really nice and landed perfectly because she just got up with the 2 tokens that they had to pull them all through. So again, that's going to it would be literally probably 10 minutes me explaining the how that whole thing went. But basically, they were able to go into the city. Darius went up to the top with no magic whatsoever. He did this entire thing with no magic. It was really interesting to see him not use any magic in this situation. He was issuing out, calling shots to the archers on the wall, coming into like a commander leader type role. It was really cool to see him use his charisma in that way. And then Ivar and Q ended up going around. This was really cool. Ivar and Q ended up from the front here. They gathered around the back, and they came around and like flanked the Lycan forces. They got a small little group of Tech Nation soldiers. Q, the barbarian, and Ivar, the fighter, rallied them up around the side to come at him from behind and flank him from the back. It was super cool tactics. They came and started hacking through the Lycans there. Clara is the artificer, is the one that went down. She was having a rough time trying to heal herself, and she couldn't, and she was making these different checks and medicine, and it wasn't working, and she just kept rolling really low. And then that was the cool story that was being told there. Darius came over to help her, and they got 10 successes, which was the automatic success towards the city roll, and they stayed in it the whole time, putting their necks on the line. And that also is going to give them some brownie points in. They were the ones that actually led this little section of the city towards their victory, which was a really awesome moment for them to have within this ranks of an army. They're going to get recognized for that, all that type of stuff, as a reward for staying in it the whole time. They had a moment where like, we've added enough. We've given the modifiers like a plus 16 at this point. It's going to be fine. They're like, no, we need to finish this thing off. And little did they know, actually finishing it off has an unlock of some sort of, dialogue that hasn't happened yet. So anyway, let's get into this whole thing. Let me show you right here. In fact, I'll do a little scroll through here. This is we had a little role play catch up as far as what happened leading up to the city. They get to the city. This is the death chart I had for the 6 different squads, and I had them roll a d6 and a d4 for anyone who would die, but they actually did very well with all that. But this is a bunch of different NPCs, and I'd have them roll and be able to kind of see randomly which casualty NPCs died. But I will say this also, they on the way here, they would chose a 3-day route that was really dangerous, a 4-day route that was kind of dangerous, or a 5-day route that was the safest. They chose to take the 5-day route, so I had them roll twice on these things for death saving throws. I had them all 4 roll a death saving throw, and anyone who failed, an NPC died. Not themselves, an NPC died. I like giving those rolls to the players to make them feel connected to that. So they all rolled the first round for that first death saving throw check. So they all rolled it. They all rolled higher than 10. So they were fine. And then I had one more time for the next day, because if they had chosen the 3-day one, no one would have died. They would have got there really quickly. But each day that passed was another day of battle to make me see this check to see if anyone died. Any of the NPCs died. And the second time, 2 of the players failed. So I had them roll in this, and we lost Keith, the light paladin, cleric guy, and Paxton. Where's Paxton? Paxton, the big guy that Darius had a conflict with. So anyway, some NPC loss. I want them to feel lost. Like, I want them to feel loss happening in the throes of war, right? I think that's one of the themes I want them to feel. So that had to happen. So then Aldor's under attack. Here's a little snippet right here. You can see basically the how I had that set up. I don't know if at this point, whenever I release this video, if I have a mass combat video out yet, but there's the first iteration draft of it. Check it out. It was really fun. And then after the attack is whenever they check in with Grant and all that kind of stuff. I knew that they were going to be doing this. They had dream rolls at night, and they leveled up to level 3. Bing, 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 bing. They leveled up to level 3. We leveled up at the table. They rolled for their hit dice, all that kind of stuff. I had Q, Darius, and Clara roll their hit dice at disadvantage. So they had to roll 2 of their hit dice and take the lowest because they have the rot, which is one more thing that I want to kind of weave in there. I did mark down how much hit points they had so that I can give them back some hit points once they cure themselves from the rot, so they're not feel like they permanently have, you know what I mean? So don't worry there. Sometimes I like to have hit dice kind of tell a story too. Anyway, so now they are, the dust settles from the attack and they're able to talk to Grant, and they tell Grant everything. Grant is like the first lieutenant in charge of them, like the very next person above them. It's him. And they poured everything into Grant. Grant is a trustworthy dude. You could totally trust Grant. He's not. And they do trust Grant, and they tell him everything about the nations, about everything that happened. They tell him literally everything. And that was a huge, big moment for me. I was like, wow, they trust Grant. Grant is going to do them a solid. So they're going to get an audience with Commander Broadstone, and they're going to tell him the same thing. And this whole thing's going to happen with that. So I thought that was really cool. They bonded with Grant from that, and then they wanted to check in with the church because they want to give Corey. They're like, Corey, Q's grandmother, Corey, has this memory problems, and we want to help her with her memory. So they're going to give her to the church. They are giving Corey to the church. Corey, so these are spoilers here. Corey is one of the witches on the council from the Swamp Nation, which the Swamp Nation has fallen. Extremely powerful person. If her memories are opened up, she would be an extremely powerful person. But the church kind of knows this in some ways. They're going to be able to do some mind magic stuff, and it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. The church has a very powerful person on their side now. Well, in custody, in prison, basically. They're going to be holding Corey hostage, and some bad things are going to happen with that. But that's for another session. That's going to be really interesting. But they broke in. They went to the church and they started talking to the people, and the church interrogated them. They're like, all right, so tell me your name, tell me your race, tell me your race is important. I purposely had to say the race on there because Q is not a human, but he's going to say human. And whenever he said human, I went, because I had them in a zone of truth. They were in a zone of truth, and they had to say what their name was, what their race was, and how many nations there were. This is the church scanning them, checking them to see if the first 2 names they didn't really care about. The name and the race they didn't even care about. They just wanted to get a baseline. And then they're going to check how many nations are there. And if somebody says a number, because the world thinks there's 4 nations only, and they've forgotten about the Forest Nation. But I'm interested to see, and they're looking for people that are there as the church. I am looking for people who know that there are more than 4 nations, and all 4 of the players say there's 7 nations because they found out that there's a Swamp Nation, an Arctic Nation, and the Forest Nation, of course. Little do they know that there's actually 10 nations, but that's for a later time as well. So they were very open and honest, telling the church that there's 7 nations, and the church is going to be like, that's going to be immediate red flags. They're all going to be under extreme watch because they know something they're not supposed to know. And the church's entire purpose is to erase and stomp out people who know more than they should. And they're going to try and erase their memories. There's going to be a whole nother thing with that, but that's for a later session. So they gave up that information to them. But the important part of why I asked for the name and race, Darius's name is not Darius. It's like, I think Horus. It's Darius is a false name. So whenever he goes Darius, she goes, And I just made it. That's all I did. I don't want to give it away to the other players, but I just was, because that was a lie. And then he said, what's your race? Kalstar. Okay, cool. But then Q, the barbarian, who is a Warforged, which Warforged in this race, that's a big deal, and you'll have to watch the big breakdown video to understand what Warforged mean in this campaign, but Warforged is a big deal. So I purposely asked race so that Q could answer that question, because he's going to, what race are you? And he's going to say human. And she went, and marked it down. If the players were paying attention, they would have learned so much information, because as players do when I'm talking one-on-one to people. I told them you all hear this. So everything that I said was open canon to everything that anyone heard. But, table talk or just Jack John joking around, just kind of talk. Everybody's having a good time, just kind of like, oh yeah, that's funny because you lied about the there's 7 nations, and so there's just fun table talk happening. And I don't think anybody picked up on that Darius's name actually isn't Darius, and I don't think anybody picked up on, actually that's a lie, Clara. And at the table, it's Clara and Q sit right next to each other. And when I said race, Clara looked at me because she knows, because they've told each other, and the other 2 players don't know. But the other 2 players are talking to each other, and they did not hear me go, for Q being at a human when he's actually a Warforged. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting as a moment for they could have seen it, but didn't. As it kept going through. So anyway, that was the whole church situation. That was really interesting to see how they do that. And they gave Corey up to the church, and they left Corey with the church. So that's going to be a big, huge curveball. And then there's some tomfoolery with the other players. They're posing as a church member to try and get more dream crystals, because I had the church take back the dream crystals from Darius. That was another big important moment here, that they now have those memories that Darius went and got. So they're going to have, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. But this is also, as a dungeon master, I'm thinking about when do I reveal who's good, who's bad, and all that kind of stuff. I have all this stuff built up for the church, but I've kind of built them out to be a good people. So I think I might play the long con version with this a little bit more before I reveal the church's back. I think it's a little too soon. So I'm going to hold on to that. I'll probably give them Corey back, and with some false memories possibly, or there's a lot of stuff there. And in fact, right now, as I'm filming this video, we just played the session. I think what I'm going to do is have them find her memories, figure out what her memories are through magic, and then modify memory, give her different memories, that she's not a powerful spellcaster, because they don't want a powerful spellcaster in the middle of all this. They're going to modify memory to give her fake false memories of her being some very mundane, normal person, which should be weird because she's already remembered that she could cast magic. But after they're done with her, she's not going to be able to cast magic. They're going to break her, basically. But give her back to her nice and healthy and clean. There you go. Ding. No problems. But it's going to be a little weird. So I don't think I'm going to fully, because I could totally kidnap Corey and hold on to her and be like, she's gone. Oh my God, what happened? But I think it's a little too much right now for the church. So anyway, here's the big finale. It was time for, we were getting towards the back half of the session, and I was like, all right, I need to introduce the warlock situation. So they're wrapping up for the night. I was like, you're meeting with Broadstones the next day, so no worries. It's just kind of do your own thing. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, what they wanted to do for their long rest type situation as they're at night. And then I had a toad hop up to Darius and talk about, and I just was talking cryptically. I think I was saying stuff like, in fact, let me bring y'all to it. So I had the church check in, who they met with, all that kind of stuff, asking the questions, all that stuff. Broadstone's war report, we didn't get to that yet. And then downtime activities. We had Darius's Patreon. Patreon. I have a Patreon. Darius's patron. And you see a toad hopping. You hear a voice. Friends. Oh God. Friends. Survive. Bring them. Save them. Like he was just talking very like, save your friends. Bring them. Save them. Bring them and you can save them. Bring them and you can save your friends. Literally, I'm doing that because this patron is going to put the patron, Darius's patron, is going to put his friends in danger and force Darius to save them. So I'm not lying. It's bring your friends so you can save them. So I wasn't lying. That's just literally what he was saying. Discover the answers if they want to survive. You can bring them, bring your loved ones, all that kind of stuff. So Frog dives into the ground, becomes a vine, and it becomes like a find your path spell. They gather everybody up. And what, interestingly enough, he gathered up Petra, his love interest, which was really cute that he actually went and got her. I thought that was cool. And his 3 party members. So now it's 4. And he told Ivar, if you want to bring your loved ones too, you can. So Ivar went and brought his girlfriend, his best friend, and his sister, who are also all in the same mech militia. So now, himself. So there's 8 players now. going on this little adventure. So I thought that was interesting. They threw in the 3 extra curveballs here. So they travel there. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. They travel through. I had a challenge of they had to climb up this thing to get into the cave face. There's this wind tunnel. Like, it's literally a tunnel in a cave, and there's wind coming at them. And they had to get through it. And then there's some interesting moments with the magic and stuff with the wind. They get all the way through there, and then there's a water challenge. So there's a wind challenge, a water challenge of having to cross some sort of stream with water and stuff. That one was pretty basic. It was just a stream of water to get across. And then the third one was entering into this vine layer of this green dragon. This green dragon, this was painted by one of my friends, who's actually the wife of one of the players at the table. This is this is a young green dragon, but I'm building up to be more than that. So it's freaking sick, though. Her name's Beth. I'm gonna put her freaking stuff down in the description. She's so good at what she does. Anyway, so it's super sick green dragon. So they don't know this though. I just got excited. I want to show that off. But they enter into basically this green dragon's lair. And to go through this, there's a little room off to the side that had some gold coins in it, and that was interesting. None of the other players really put it together, but Darius, he knows me and how much I love dragons, and he knows what that kind of means. So he was a little alerted there. And then off to the side, there was a kid, a small child that they found, which is the offspring son of this ancient green dragon. They met this kid, which was real creepy, and I got to be this like creepy kid inside of a vine cave why is there a child here? This is strange. And the kid led them into this whole thing and talked to them all, and they led them straight to the thing. Now, here's one thing. This is some background stuff. Where the session was at, how late it was, all the stuff. I had a little mini challenge for them to have to figure out, some sort of vine challenge, right? And have like, they're going to be restrained by vines, and these vine golems are going to come out and like interact with them and have a mini little combat and be like, oh wow, okay, cool, now you can come in. But it was too late. I wanted to end the session with this big reveal of this patron and leave it on a cliffhanger. I didn't think that the combat was necessary. Combats can tend to take a little bit long. There's a lot of extra NPCs that were brought along. It was kind of weird. The kid was already feeling real good and creepy as far as where everybody was at the table. So I was like, no, we're going to go right on into the end part here to meet the patron. So the kid walks him straight on in there, and I completely just trashed that entire encounter situation because I was like, I don't need it. Let's keep going. So they enter in, and the individual comes out, Sarathis, and he starts talking to all of them. He's like, you finally came, you brought your friends. And had this little banter back and forth with you've brought your loved ones, and it's talking a little bit cryptically. I'm glad you're able to save them. I'll be glad to see you save them. And then he's like, whoa, what is going on? And then the 3 that don't matter to Darius, Ivar's 3 people, he raises his hand up. They all get restrained by vines, and then rocketed back out of the room through the vines, like peeling up and backwards. And I literally just pulled them out of there. Again, showing the power of this ancient green dragon. And I know ancient green dragons don't cast spells. This is different. Dragons in this world are almost like gods, right? In this whole setting situation, they are extremely powerful. This is not something they're actually going to be fighting right now. But I want to do the show of power, and the show of power was to rip them out of the room. And Ivar, the person who cares about those people, immediately starts freaking out, and then he says, "Don't worry, they'll be fine." And he calms them down and is empathizing with them. So, anyway, to get to the big cliffhanger ending is they have this talk and everything. He still hasn't shown that he's a dragon. And then Ivar, like he talks about, and I have this whole speech here just to show you guys. Cliffside, hillside, and then confrontation. Here we go. Confrontation, strength save, entangle them all up. But Ivar rolls a 24 or something crazy. And I was like, oh, wow. Interesting. Let's let the dice tell the story. I could have said, no, the DC is 25. But I was like, and like looking back on it, I might have switched it. I might have just had the DC be 25, but I legitimately, I did not think anyone would roll that high. And I had the DC at 23 for this saving throw for this dragon, which is freaking high, right? But he still beats it as a level 3. He beats it. So he was rolling crazy high, but he beats it. So I was like, all right, he doesn't get wrapped up in the vines, and the dragon has this little back and forth, or the individual Sarathis, not a dragon yet, has a little conversation with him, a little like a respect moment here. And then he starts going into this basically this monologue. And this is now the biggest thing that I wanted to end this whole thing with is this player has abandoned his patron. I had to stop as the dungeon master and be like, what do I do here? What do I do here when this green dragon, this dragon god, has chosen this person to be their avatar, to be their source of magic? And as the rules that I've already written beforehand, they're only allowed to choose one. Each of the 5 dragons can only choose one to act on this world for, because if the dragon acts on the world, then bad stuff happens. I'm not going to get into all that lore stuff here, but there's part of the lore of the world has stopped these dragons from acting on it constantly, because then the others can, and there's this check and balance system that they all have on top of everything else that's going on in the dream realm and stuff too. So the dragons have to choose someone to be their avatar. They have chosen Darius, and Darius abandoned them. So now you want to be able to act in the world and do stuff, but you can't because this person doesn't get it. This mortal doesn't get it. And so what I did in this drafting of this script, I had to write out almost like a persuasive essay from the source of a dragon, listing off all of the accolades of Darius and what Darius has accomplished. I list off all, like, for years he studied magic for literally, and this is me also thinking, and I had to stop as a dungeon master. Does it make sense for Darius to abandon what he did? Because if it does make sense, I'm going to be more lenient. But if I don't think it makes sense from the perspective of the patron, I'm going to be hard on him, right? Because that's what the world is. Your choices affect the world. So thinking from the patron, Darius's character, and this is the big thing here. Darius's character had spent 2.5 years studying magic without ever casting a spell. He tried so hard to cast magic for basically 3 years, not casting a single spell. Finally casts a spell. Oh my gosh, he can cast spells now. He joins the mech militia to be able to kind of further this skill he has now. And then as soon as he joins the mech militia, he doesn't cast magic. He doesn't cast magic, and the whole first intro, you can see back to session 1, he doesn't cast any magic. He runs around with a staff and just hits people with a staff because he's afraid to cast his magic. That's huge. That's huge from the character building and the lore explanation of this magic. This magic of nature is emotion based. Plants and all that type of stuff, and the connection to them is through emotion. And why Darius was chosen, and I've said this in Marco's are the one-on-one video app that I talk to my players through. I've sent one-on-one video messages to this player talking about, you have been chosen because of your curiosity. You've been chosen because of your determination, your resilience. And I listed off all these things of why he's chosen. And then he doesn't show any magic there. He's afraid and hesitant and scared. So the dragon talks about this. But what happened? You lost you embarrassed yourself in front of everyone, and you failed. And then you started to believe again, and you dove into this thing again, and you pushed yourself harder to learn this stuff and to embrace this gift that I've given you. And I start going into, I just got chills just now. I start listing off, and I had this visual of this, like, these clouds swirling around with this imagery showing that this dragon's doing. And this is now where we haven't gotten to this point in the session. The session ends. I'm all over the place. The session ends with the dragon restraining all of his friends, and that all of them get wrapped up in vines, and he's restraining them over water. The water is rising up as his friends are being pulled down, fully restrained in the vines, going to kill them. And the vines keep tightening and dealing more and more damage to them. And there's going to be a poison that goes. There's going to be lots of stuff that he's going to be basically killing and forcing Darius to tap into his magic again to save them. But the reason why, and that's where the session ended, is this dragon extreme show of power forcing Darius to tap into his magic to save his friends. Because, and this is now back to the big picture of this dragon, in my head of, as the dungeon master, what I had to think of through this patron is, he taps into his magic, and then I list off this dragon's next session. At the top of next session is going to list off all the accolades and all the amazing things that Darius has done. There's so many things. I went through all my session notes. I listed off every single time that Darius had a big, awesome moment. In the trials, he had a big, huge moment. In the big combat, he had a big, huge moment. In the capture the flag thing, he had this big thing. He stitched back together a falling tower with vines. stitch back together a tower. He saved Clara's life. Like Clara was running through the forest, the nightmare forest. The vines were, the trees were on fire and they were collapsing, and he pulled her out to literally save her life. There was somebody that was dying in front of him. Everyone else around him, kind of everybody matched up to him. He went and he healed and he saved someone from dying. He was literally about to die, and his role made him not die. Like, I am going to hit him hard with all of these things that he's done, painting a picture of how successful Darius has been when he taps into his magic. Multiple times over the course of 9 months, he's been so successful. And then over the course of 2 days, his magic doesn't go that well and he fails a little bit and he abandons magic. That's not going to sit well with the patron. So that's my thought process. The patron is pissed because after 2.5 years of casting magic, or after 2.5 years of trying to cast magic and failing, and then after multiple times of being these grand displays of power and control over nature, and huge things that he's not even, like, he's level 2, level 1, level 2, like he's doing these really powerful things, and then there's one day, one session, last session, had a rough time. I mean, honestly, the dice weren't in his favor. The dice were rolling bad, and it caused him to, role play this whole I'm abandoning my patron thing. But from the patron's perspective, no, that doesn't make any sense. You casted spells. You didn't cast a spell for 2.5 years, and then you've done all these things, and then you abandon me after this, after just this. You're stronger than that. So he's going to force his hand on this whole thing, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to have this huge list off of all these things that he's done when he taps into his magic. Why would you abandon me? And I want to see what the player says. And what's really interesting is the session ended, everybody was done, everybody kind of packed up, and he was the last one to leave. And so I was like, hey, oh my God, I completely forgot to say this part. This is what you guys get here, is the raw, complete story of this. I got so distracted showing this miniature off. There was a huge display of him turning into a green dragon to show that he truly was a dragon. And they're like, oh, okay. Darius, and the other players didn't even know that Darius was a warlock. They thought he was a wizard. So there's a lot of reveals going on here. And turns out his patron is a green dragon. What? So, yeah, he revealed himself to be that. So I was like, your patron's a dragon. Crazy, huh? And we had this whole conversation. He's like, yeah, I just think Darius he's not going to cast magic. He's not going to do it. I was like, wow. So I have no idea. I am genuinely excited to see what Darius does next session. I don't know. I am going to have to, especially after kind of talking with him. Dungeon Masters, talk to your players, try and get some insight into what they're about to do, so you can kind of like prepare yourself. Because if he doesn't cast any magic, someone's dying. Probably Petra, which feels, he has this connection with Petra, and I almost feel like there's going to have to be something where she dies, but he's going to he can bring her back, and only he can bring her back. Cash, you better, like, you know what I'm saying? And now it becomes this weird patron, this like twisted patron that I never had to plan on. I wanted this patron. This patron is a good patron. Like, I would say the alignment of this dragon would be, I mean, I maybe neutral good or maybe true neutral, because he's going to kill one of them if he has to, but he's going to stabilize them and make sure that he can be brought back and just use them as a bargaining chip. So is that evil? He has good intentions, so I'd say no. Is it good? No, because you did hurt somebody. So again, alignment, whatever. This is he has good intentions, but he's going to force Darius to be able to see what he's capable of, because he needs Darius to be able to believe in himself, and right now Darius doesn't. So we'll see what that happens. But I'm thinking probably Petra's going to die, and that might cause him to do something, and then there'll be some sort of stalemate with him saying he can bring her back if Darius, whatever. So I don't know. That was not the vision I had planned for this patron. I wanted it to be a good patron, but then he abandoned the patron after 2 days of in-world time and just abandoned him. And I think that would piss off the patron. So we'll see what happens. And stay tuned for next time. Check out the description for all the other videos that all tie into this. And stay creative. Think outside that box.